We are bringing on Miller Whitehouse-Levine, the founder and CEO of the Solana Policy Institute, which is also one of the sponsors of the show. We're excited to have Miller on today. Miller,
Hello,
welcome.
thank you for having me.
Hey
That
there.
logo looks good down there.
Yeah, exactly. How
How's
are
it
you
going?
doing?
Doing well, doing well. Jerry, not on the train this week.
Good to see you. No, yeah,
That was awesome. That was
we're
awesome.
not on the hill today, right? I see your casual Friday gear.
It's casual Friday.
Did you
Only
just call
Solana,
him
most in the
Jerry?
office.
We're
I
gonna
know,
call
I
him
know. I
Jerry
call
now.
him Jerry, but I know his name is Gerald. I have a habit of doing that,
It's okay.
unfortunately. I
You're
apologize.
not the first, not the last. Yeah.
I
All
love
right,
it.
Miller, let's get into it. When it comes to policy priorities at SBI, what would you kind of say are the key areas of focus right now until the end of the year?
Well, there is a ton going on in crypto policy. I think our overall focus is accomplishing durable wins. I think our strategy for this administration and this Congress has been let's try and lock in as many durable rules and legislation that we can, such that the industry doesn't experience the whiplash we have had over the change in administration in the opposite direction. Like we need to mitigate the 2029 risk to the extent we can. And the way to do that is to secure durable legislative and regulatory wins. Genius, obviously, is the apotheosis of that, at least successfully this year. Market structure, tax legislation will be important throughout the remainder of this Congress and this year. Gerald, I'm more bullish on tax than it sounds like you are after your conversations this week. I thought the hearing went well. I think in prior Congresses, the Finance Committee in the Senate and the and Means Committee in the House haven't really been engaged on crypto issues to the extent they are this Congress. So that there's not the foundation of knowledge on those committees that there has been developed on the banking and finance committees and the ag committees in Congress. So I view this as a very positive foundational work that essentially creates the opportunity or creates the ability for us to seize the opportunity when it arises to get legislation done. We're also very focused on the SEC's agenda. I think the SEC's agenda is perhaps the most ambitious of any agencies I've ever seen, including Gary Gensler's, which might disappoint him. So we're very much looking forward to the SEC promulgating proposed rules, exemptive relief, as Chair Atkins has been talking about for several months. So I think it'll be a busy conclusion to the year, or at least I'm hoping it will be given the government shutdown. I agree with everyone's assessment that it really has put everything on ice. We've not, as an industry, really dealt with a government shutdown uh, at least in a time when DC is working on crypto policy. So it's been a bit of an education. And a year ago, this would have been probably very welcome for crypto, but I'm eager to get the government reopened.
Yeah, Miller, you mentioned the tax hearing. Did you guys at SPI think it was a good start? I mean, you mentioned some of these committees like Senate Finance haven't been focusing on issues of digital assets quite as closely as, Senate Banking and Senate Ag. But I'm curious to know your take because I was kind of sitting in the back of the room. I was actually the only person at the press table because it was the first day of the government shutdown. But the room was packed. I mean, with attendees, but also, a fair amount of senators came in and asked questions, barring Sheldon Whitehouse's tirade on climate change. I think pretty much everybody stuck to topic, but I'm curious to know what your thoughts were just sort of on the content and the questions that were asked.
Yeah, I thought again it was extremely bullish. I thought it was largely a good faith engagement with the issues. And if you think back to like 2018, 2019, when the first crypto hearings in the financial services committees and the ag committees were occurring, it's in my mind this week's was light years ahead of where other committees were starting. So I thought it was very productive. I saw the House Ways and Means folks were in attendance as well, which is, there's always a House Senate dynamic. So I thought that was encouraging as well. Tax legislation constitutionally has to originate in the House. So I do think it's important and it's positive that the two chambers are working together.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm curious on sort of the broader front. So we were talking about the 0.0 approval a little earlier. Obviously, Austin had his time at the Solana Foundation, and there's a lot of links to 0.0 and Solana. You mentioned the SEC's agenda getting thrown off a bit. Where do you see the challenges coming up in the near term for like ecosystems and what we should expect there? Like how do you think this slowdown will sort of impact whether it's more no action efforts or the ability to engage, the ability of CFTC to staff up? Like where are you seeing the issues there?
Well, everything's just completely on
Yeah.
ice at the agencies until the government reopens. So I'm thinking about it as every day the government is closed, it's like adding 2 days to the timeline for all of the industry's priorities. That's everything from no action letters, individual like relief for individual companies, to massive rulemaking efforts. The entire agenda is disrupted by the shutdown, and that's I mean to not the same extent, but to a large extent, true in Congress as well. The Congress is focused on reopening the government, and crypto policy, becomes a secondary issue next to that. So it's really just put everything on ice. So everything's frozen until the government reopens.
Yeah. How's this got you feeling about the ETFs, Miller? Because I think that's been a kind of a rallying point, I think, for Solana, at least retail investors, right? They've been so excited to see the final approval of these Solana spot ETFs. I mean, potentially staking, right? Too. There's been a lot of activity, and it's sort of been Solana and XRP have been the two that the retail crowd has been really pumped up about. So shutdown or not, you're still hopeful that the SEC will actually greenlight these things once the shutdown is over?
Yes, 100%. That is my expectation. I expect them to launch with staking, which will be interesting and pretty novel. I was hoping beyond hope. I hate to admit, I stayed up late Monday night hoping that they might squeak them out
Yeah.
right before the shutdown, which again was based on nothing other than hopium. So I do expect them to move quickly after the government reopens on all of these products.
Mhm. Miller, I also want to get your take on the Solana side of things. Obviously, the Solana token is doing pretty well. I don't know if you could speak to that, but like as head of SBI, you probably engage with a lot of different people who are looking at the Solana market and or the asset itself. What are you kind of thinking about on that front when it comes to SBI advocating on the policy side with Solana in mind?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think it's sort of a positive externality of our policy work. We're pursuing policies that are totally tech neutral and explain them through a Solana lens is how I think about them. So, for example, we're working on staking ETPs, but that work will be just as useful to any other network that has staking as a feature. So I think that our work in DC might have a tangential positive externality on folks' understanding of the ecosystem among that audience. I'm such a policy nerd, unfortunately, Jacqueline, that my focus remains here in Washington.
So you don't have price predictions for us?
I have hopefully up is my position,
There we
but
go.
no, I don't. I'd be doing something
There we
else
go.
if I knew which way things were going.
Yeah.
You're like me on that front. I've been on interviews and spaces before, and they're like, "What's your price prediction?" I'm like, "I don't really follow it like that." I also don't own crypto, so I think that's also part of it. It's like I'm not watching my portfolio on like a day-to-day basis. So
Did you
I
just
do
break
that.
news?
I do do
Eleanor,
that, but
Eleanor doesn't own crypto. Is that
yeah, come
a
on.
scoop?
Oh, no,
no,
that's
that's not a scoop.
unfortunately well known.
Well
Yes,
known.
I've been
Yeah.
trying to get her to get it, but she just hasn't budged.
I was at the Bitcoin in DC conference this week, and the amount of Bitcoiners trying to get me to buy Bitcoin, just a little bit, just a little bit. You only need a little bit. I'm like, guys, no.
Really? Come on, it's
You
not a
know,
bad
Independence
one.
at its finest. Yeah.
maybe
Well,
one day.
So Miller, on that note, I want to ask you, I guess, more broadly, and I think we've talked to Kristen, your colleague at SPI about this too. Like, SPI seems to be growing very rapidly. The Solana ecosystem is growing very rapidly. How do you guys think about growing your impact in DC? And I think also I want to ask you about the origins of more direct impact, because I know you've been involved. Obviously, you came from DeFi Education Fund, been involved with a lot of the trade associations here to go out and do your own thing and then grow so quickly. Like, how have you guys handled that, and how do you think it's going so far?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think when we started the organization, we had a pretty good idea that we wanted a small team to get up to speed quickly, but we're up to 7. Our new GC, Patrick Wilson, joined on Monday, so it's good to have him. But with any new organization, of course, it's a new team. You have a new flow among colleagues, and it takes a while to get into that flow. So there's certainly challenges with being a 6-month-old organization, but I think it's been a all at the same time. Crypto policy is going absolutely nuts in Washington. Everything happening all at once. So all of that considered, I think we're certainly making an impact and have been able to do so on a relatively speedy basis. I think the experience of going from a more excuse me, one of the things that attracted me about this job and this organization is that I love DeFi. I'm like a DeFi guy at heart, but I like a lot of other policy issues in crypto too. And it is certainly a privilege to be advocating on behalf of an ecosystem where literally everything is going on. There's been a range of issues I didn't even think about being crypto issues that have been on our docket this year. So it's been really exciting. It's been very educational. We've learned a lot, and I hope that other folks in the in the industry more broadly, follow our lead to the extent they think it's been successful. Because, I think one of my main takeaways from 2025 is that there is so much opportunity right now in crypto in DC, right? Every agency is focused on this. We're about to be implementing the Genius Act. The SEC has a robust crypto agenda. The CFTC is working on it too. And I think as an industry, just don't have the bodies, the knowledgeable bodies to take advantage of that opportunity to the extent we could. So I think, 3-4 years ago, there were like 5 people doing this in the world, or at least in Washington. So I give ourselves some grace, but I do think one of the things we need to be focused on as an industry is broadening engagement in Washington, such that we can seize these opportunities when they arise again in the future.
Miller, you were the CEO of the DeFi Education Fund before starting SPI. You mentioned you're a DeFi guru. I was on the Hill yesterday and I had a couple of coffee meetings with some congressional staffers of some DEM offices. And they were telling me that, the sticking points here are really going to be, one, the ethics clauses. And I say sticking points, I mean, I don't think it's the hill that they're going to die on, the ethics clauses, but, to quote Kristen Gillibrand, they've been trying to get, ethics provisions into like every single bill for the last like 20 years and they've failed, but why not try for this one? So I think they're going to push for it, but probably not the hill that they're going to die on. But this DeFi conundrum is going to be a tough one, right? You've got the Elizabeth Warrens, you've got the Mark Warners. Mark Warner's obviously on the Intel committee. I'm curious to know how your conversations at SPI and your meetings with staffers and with members are going on the DeFi front, because as I'm sure it's probably going to be a battle over that. The implementation of DeFi and how they're going to regulate it and how much are they going to regulate it in the upcoming battle for getting clarity through.
Yeah, I 100% agree with your assessment of the situation. I think DeFi has always been challenging because it's so novel. Similar to how Bitcoin, is attempting to use software to allow people to engage in activities that previously required financial intermediaries with respect to payments. DeFi is doing that for everything else. And it is just a completely new paradigm. And the government, broadly, governments around the world, have been very reliant on financial intermediaries to accomplish their policy objectives. When those intermediaries don't exist, it blows up the approach that we've taken to financial regulation for several decades. And therefore, that's what excites me about it. It's such an interesting issue. It's a new way to do things, but that means we have to approach it from a different policy perspective.
Mhm.
Uh, it has been quite a challenge to expand the tent with respect to people that think the same way I do on this front. Eleanor, I will say we are light years ahead of where we were in 2021 when we formed the DeFi Education Fund. At the time, I don't think anyone in Congress knew what DeFi was. Senator Gillibrand, I think in 2022, was the first member of Congress to say DeFi in the congressional record, which I remember being excited about. And it proves your point, Eleanor, because it was in the context of how to approach DeFi in the Digital Commodity Consumer Protection Act, DCCPA. The exact same DeFi questions were at issue in late 2022, and it became a central debate within the bill. I remember on Bankless, SBF and Eric Voorhees actually debated DeFi regulation in the DCCPA. So, I don't think any of this is new. It's just that there's 10,000, 15,000 people in Washington that play some part in legislative crafting. And I think we've made a lot of progress on informing some portion of those on DeFi, but we've got a lot more work to do.
Yeah, Miller, I think we're talking about all this history and all this years ago, this ancient history in crypto. I think it's one of the more poorly kept secrets that you are one of the youngest old men in crypto policy in DC. You kind of, I mean, you basically started out here, right? And you've really kind of seen everything. I won't have Eleanor and Jackie guess your age, but it's been
Thank you.
interesting, obviously, to have you go through this journey. I was having a conversation at dinner the other night about basically like the alternate reality if FTX had not collapsed. And so I'm really curious about going back to that debate and the influence that SBF had in the industry and you kind of being around the table at that time. What do you think, if we could just like fun sort of thought experiment it, like what do you think would have happened to the industry if that legislation had actually passed? I mean, obviously we wouldn't have the backlash that we did, but it probably would have been a very, very different environment.
Yeah, I at the time was opposed to that legislation because I viewed it to essentially prescribe DeFi development in the United States, and that's why the DeFi treatment in that legislation became an issue, and I'm thankful it did. So I don't think we would have been better off if that bill passed, but I obviously think we would have been better off had SBF not done
Been a
his
giant
thing.
fraud. Yeah.
Right.
We're gonna way
I
better.
think that I think legislation's always tough. I think that's more about timing and opportunity than anything else. What I do think would have been different is we would not have had a whole of government attempt to shut down this industry in the United States. If you remember, Gary's war really picked up after the FTX implosion. The banking regulators, a few months after the FTX implosion, put out their guidance that initiated Operation Choke Point 2.0. I think it also had a massive impact on the industry's broader reputation among society and the business community. So I think it was uniformly negative, obviously, and I think it's difficult to appreciate the impact it had. I think that uh, you know we would have been probably 5 to 10 years ahead as far as the development of the industry in the United States is concerned had
Mhm.
it not happened.
Yeah. Miller, we're almost at the top of the hour, but I also know that the Solana Policy Institute launched a Protect the Builders campaign the other week, and we had Roman Storm on the show. I was wondering if you had any case updates on that front before we let you go. You got to give us something.
So they're doing some post-trial motions at the moment. So the district court is closing up whether the judge essentially overturns her own case or the case that she oversees. hope springs eternal, but I don't expect that to occur.
Mhm.
I think the ideal outcome here is President Trump pardoning Roman. I think that the verdicts and lack thereof on count 2 proves that the legal theory underpinning the conviction for unlicensed money transmitting was incorrect. So I think the ideal outcome would be President Trump pardoning Roman Storm. I think that Roman's position, his counsel's position, is right on the law. I think that would be vindicated at the Second Circuit. So to the extent he isn't pardoned, I do think on appeal he'll win.
Yeah, I guess we're gonna have to see on that front. Miller, thank you so much for coming on today. It was a pleasure, and we'd love to have you back. I think I
Thank
could
you for
speak for
having
the
me.
hosts. Yeah.
It's an
Absolutely.
absolute pleasure. Yeah, it's good to be on.
Good
Yeah.
to see you. See you on the train.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Next time. Yeah.
Wait, so you do